Let me paint you a picture. You've saved up for months. You've planned everything. You've called the airline 3 times, confirmed the wheelchair assistance, confirmed it again, then confirmed it a 3rd time just to be safe. You get to the airport, you check in, everything seems fine. You board the plane, you do the whole shuffle into the aisle chair that was clearly designed by someone who has never actually touched a wheelchair, and you get to your seat. You land, you wait, and then someone comes out of the jetway and says, and I want you to really hear this, "Sir, we're not sure where your chair is." That is not a hypothetical. That is the reality that hundreds of thousands of disabled Americans face every single year when they try to travel. And today, we're going to talk about all of it. The flying, the hotels, what has actually improved, and some things genuinely have. Cruise travel, which is more accessible than most people realize. International cities that are putting the United States to shame. And a conversation that more and more disabled Americans are having quietly, behind closed doors, about whether it even makes sense to stay in this country at all. This is Disability.co. I'm Drew. And this is everything you need to know about traveling with a disability in 2026.
Time now 6:02. We want to go ahead and get to some breaking news for you this morning. A $50 million fine for American Airlines. And our Lauren Crawford joins us now live at DFW Airport this morning, of course, with more.
Yeah, Lauren, government regulators say that the airline violated some laws that were actually meant to protect disabled passengers.
Let's start with flying, because flying is still the most stressful travel experience available to disabled people in America, and we need to be clear-eyed about why. The law that governs disability rights in air travel is called the Air Carrier Access Act, the ACAA. It was passed in 1986. 1986. For context, that's before most modern commercial aircraft were designed. The ACAA prohibits discrimination by airlines on the basis of disability, and it gives the Department of Transportation the authority to set specific rules about what airlines are required to do. And there are real enforceable requirements in there. But let's talk about what's happening in practice, because the gap between what the law requires and what disabled passengers actually experience is enormous. Here's the number that should make every one of you furious. In 2023, U.S. airlines transported 835,327 wheelchairs and mobility devices. Of those, 11,527 were reported as mishandled, damaged, lost, or delayed. That's a rate of 1.38 per 100. Now that number went down slightly to 1.26% in 2024, which sounds like progress, and technically it is. But let's think about what that actually means. In 2024, airlines were moving nearly 900,000 wheelchairs and scooters. At 1.26%, that's still over 11,000 damaged or lost mobility devices in a single year. 11,000 people whose primary means of moving through the world was broken or missing when they landed. And we're not talking about a scratched suitcase here. A power wheelchair can cost $20,000, $30,000. Some custom chairs cost more than a car. When your wheelchair is damaged, it is not like waiting for a delayed bag. You cannot walk to the hotel. You cannot use a loaner from baggage claim. You are, in many cases, completely immobilized until your chair is repaired or replaced, and that can take weeks. Weeks during which the airline may or may not provide a temporary replacement, may or may not move quickly on a repair claim, and may or may not respond to your calls. So what does the ACAA actually require? The rules are more specific than most people know. Airlines are required to provide assistance boarding and deplaning, including the use of jetway lifts or ramps if boarding bridges are not accessible. On aircraft with more than 60 seats, there must be an onboard wheelchair available for passengers who need to access the lavatory during flight. Aircraft with 100 or more seats must have priority storage space in the cabin for at least one passenger's folding wheelchair. Airlines must accept battery-powered wheelchairs and are responsible for properly packaging the batteries if needed. They provide the packaging, not you. Here is something important. Every major airline is required to have a complaint resolution official, a CRO, available either in person or by phone during all operating hours. This person has the authority to resolve disability-related complaints on the spot, not a gate agent, not a supervisor who has to check with someone. The CRO is the airline's designated expert on disability issues and has actual authority. Most disabled passengers have never heard of this. That's not an accident. But now you know. If something goes wrong at the airport, your wheelchair assistance didn't show up, your chair was damaged, they're telling you things that don't sound right. You ask for the CRO by name, not a supervisor, the complaint resolution official. Write that down. Now, in December 2024, the Department of Transportation finalized a significant update to the ACAA wheelchair rules. The new rule included stronger definitions of what safe and dignified assistance actually means, required enhanced training for airline employees who handle wheelchairs and physically assist passengers with disabilities, and, this was the big one, established that damaging or delaying the return of a wheelchair is an automatic violation of the ACAA. Not something the airline can wriggle out of by claiming it was an accident. Automatic violation. However, and this is important for 2026, as of late 2025, DOT announced it was pausing enforcement of that specific automatic violation provision until at least the end of 2026 while they reconsider it. The other provisions of the rule are still in effect and enforceable. So we're in a transitional moment. The training requirements are real. The dignified assistance standards are real. But the automatic liability piece is on hold. That means documentation remains your most important tool. Here is your practical flying checklist. Before the flight, call the airline directly, not through a third-party app, and request wheelchair assistance specifically. Confirm the type of assistance you need: boarding, deplaning, connection assistance, all of it. Get a confirmation number or a name. Before you check your chair, photograph it from every angle. Video it. Document every scratch, every scuff, every existing imperfection. Email those photos to yourself so they're time-stamped. When you check your device, ask the gate agent to fill out a passenger property irregularity report if there is any damage visible before the flight. Before the flight, not after. When you land, do not leave the baggage claim area until you have physically inspected your chair. Not a glance, a real inspection. If there is damage, report it immediately, before you leave the airport. File a property damage claim with the airline right there. Take photos of the damage next to your boarding pass so the date is clear. Then, within 45 days, file a written complaint with the airline. Keep a copy. If the airline's response is unsatisfactory, you file a complaint with the Department of Transportation at transportation.gov. DOT will forward your complaint to the airline, require a written response, and review the case for ACAA violations. The DOT Disability Hotline is 1-800-778-4838, staffed weekdays during business hours, and they can assist in real time when you have an issue at the airport. Use it. Now let's talk about hotels, because hotels have their own set of infuriating problems, and most of them come down to one thing. The ADA requires accessible rooms, but the ADA does not define what accessible means in a way that is useful to you. Under the ADA, hotels built after 1993 are required to have a certain percentage of accessible rooms. Those rooms are supposed to be dispersed across the property, not all stacked in the same corner, not only available in the cheapest room category. You are legally entitled to accessible options across room types, different bed configurations, different views, different price points. Hotels are also required to guarantee your accessible room reservation, not put it in the notes, not say they'll do their best, guarantee it. If you reserve a room with a roll-in shower and a king bed, that is what must be waiting for you when you arrive. If the hotel cannot honor that, they are required to move you to a comparable accessible room at a nearby property, at their cost, not yours. Here's where it falls apart. There is no national standard for what a hotel must put inside an accessible room beyond the ADA's physical measurements. So, accessible room can mean a room with grab bars in a bathroom that is otherwise completely impractical. It can mean a bathroom door that technically meets the width requirement but opens in a way that blocks the toilet. It can mean a roll-in shower that exists but has a fixed bench in the corner that eats up so much of the floor space that a larger chair can't turn around. These rooms are technically compliant, and they are everywhere. This is why calling the hotel directly is not optional. It is the minimum. When you call, be specific. Don't ask, is the room accessible? Ask, what is the width of the bathroom doorway? Is the shower a roll-in or a transfer shower? Is there a bench? Is it fixed or removable? What is the clear floor space on both sides of the bed? Is the closet bar lowered? Does the room have a visual fire alarm? If you need a roll-in shower specifically and the room has a transfer shower, those are not the same thing, and you need to get every answer in writing. Email the hotel after the call and say, confirming our conversation. My reservation includes a roll-in shower, lowered closet rod, and adequate turning radius. Please confirm. Keep that email. Hotels will deny conversations they had verbally. They cannot deny an email you're holding in your hand. Third-party booking sites are a gamble for accessible rooms. The ADA extends some requirements to platforms like Expedia and Hotels.com, but they are not required to guarantee accessible features the way the hotel itself is. You can use them to find options, but always call the property directly to confirm and guarantee. And reconfirm 2 to 3 days before arrival, when the hotel's housekeeping staff is actually blocking and assigning rooms. That phone call can be the difference between getting what you need and spending your first night figuring out how to make a bathroom work that was never designed for you. One more thing on hotels: smaller properties, fewer than 50 rooms, are not required under ADA to have accessible rooms with roll-in showers. They may have nothing that works for you. Know that before you book. Let's take a breath for a second, because not everything is a disaster. There are real improvements happening, and it would be dishonest not to talk about them. The picture is genuinely mixed in 2026. Some things are better, some things are stuck, and understanding the difference matters. Technology has made a meaningful difference in trip planning. Google Maps added accessible routing features that now allow you to specifically request wheelchair-accessible walking routes and stair-free navigation. You can filter for accessible entrances, accessible restrooms, accessible parking, and accessible elevators, all before you leave your house. In 2024, Google expanded those features further, adding stair-free route options for walking navigation and better labeling of businesses that are owned or operated by people with disabilities. Apple Maps added functionality to help users route around stairs and flag elevator outages in real time. These are not perfect. The data depends on user contributions, and there are plenty of cities where the information is incomplete or outdated. But compared to 5 years ago, having a tool in your pocket that can tell you whether the entrance to a restaurant has a step or whether the subway station you're about to enter has a working elevator is genuinely useful. It does not solve systemic inaccessibility, but it reduces the number of times you arrive somewhere and find out it doesn't work for you only after you're already there. Now let's talk about cruise travel, because this is the section that surprises most people, and it surprised me when I started digging into it. Cruising has become one of the most accessible ways to travel that exists right now, and I don't think the disability community talks about it enough. Here's why cruises work well for disabled travelers. The ship is your hotel and your transportation simultaneously. You are never hauling yourself and your equipment through a foreign airport, managing unfamiliar transit systems, or trying to figure out whether the cobblestone street between you and the restaurant is actually navigable. You unpack once. The accessible features are built into the ship's design and subject to a consistent set of standards, and the newer the ship, the better those features tend to be. Major cruise lines have invested heavily in accessibility. Royal Caribbean offers staterooms with roll-in showers, lowered sinks, emergency call buttons, pool lifts, ramped access to public decks, automatic doors, and step-free routes throughout their ships. Their private island destination, Perfect Day at Coco Cay, is fully accessible with beach wheelchairs available at no extra charge and pool lifts at multiple water venues. Norwegian Cruise Line launched a new ship in early 2025, Norwegian Aqua, with 49 wheelchair-accessible staterooms across every cabin category, from inside cabins to haven suites. Their access team is a dedicated group of specialists you can work with before the cruise to set up everything you need, both on board and in port. MSC Cruises' newest ship, MSC World America, launched with 65 accessible staterooms featuring power-assisted entry doors, roll-in showers, and ramps between the cabin interior and the balcony. Carnival, Princess, and Holland America all have accessible stateroom options and pre-cruise accessibility request processes. The important distinction to understand is the difference between accessible stateroom and what's actually in it. Just like hotels, you want to confirm specifics. Is it a roll-in shower or a transfer shower? What is the door width? Is there turning space? Call the cruise line's accessibility department directly, not general reservations, and submit a detailed accessibility needs form, which most lines require at least 45 to 60 days before sailing. This is not them being bureaucratic. It's them ensuring the ship's staff knows what you need before you board. Shore excursions are a separate conversation. The ship might be perfect, and the port town might be completely inaccessible. Do your research port by port. Many lines offer accessible shore excursions, but inventory is limited and books early. And some ports require tendering, where you take a small boat from the ship to shore, which is essentially impossible for most wheelchair users. Know before you book which ports use tenders and plan accordingly. The cruise line's accessibility team can tell you this. Insurance is based on your work history. If you're a U.S. citizen, you can receive SSDI payments in almost any country in the world. You notify Social Security that you're moving, where you're going, and for how long. You complete eligibility questionnaires every 1 to 2 years. Your SSDI follows you. SSI, Supplemental Security Income, is different. If you leave the United States for more than 30 days, your SSI stops, not pauses, stops. If your income is SSI rather than SSDI, leaving the country is not a casual decision. It is a complete restructuring of your financial situation. Medicare does not travel internationally. Medicaid does not travel at all. These are the two most consequential financial realities of this conversation. If you're living abroad on SSDI, you need a healthcare plan that doesn't depend on either one. Portugal is the most discussed destination in these communities, and the interest is rational. Portugal has a passive income visa, the D7, designed for people living on pensions or fixed income. SSDI qualifies. The income threshold is roughly €900 per month. A one-bedroom in Porto runs around €900. Lisbon is around $1,200. Private health insurance required for the visa costs a few $100s per year, not per month. After establishing residency, you register with Portugal's national health system and receive coverage at very low cost. People who have made this move report that the SSDI benefit that barely covers rent in an American city allows them to live with actual material dignity in Portugal. Mexico is the most practical option for many. The border is close, family is reachable, and you can drive back for specialist visits. Cities like Guadalajara, Mérida, and San Miguel de Allende have established American expat communities and quality medical care at a fraction of U.S. costs. A specialist appointment might be $50 out of pocket. Physical therapy might be $15 a session. And the local economy often allows disabled expats to hire transportation and support in ways their income simply didn't permit in the United States. Medellin, Colombia has become a serious expat destination. The pensionado visa requires roughly $900 per month. SSDI qualifies. A one-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood runs $200 to $400 per month. The climate is essentially 70 degrees year-round. and the city has a genuinely innovative transit system, including aerial cable cars connecting hillside neighborhoods to the city center. Costa Rica has one of the oldest established expat residency frameworks in the region. The Pensionado program requires around $1,000 per month. Residents can access Costa Rica's national health system at low cost, and the country has made real investments in accessible tourism infrastructure over the past decade. None of this is simple. The people doing it successfully spent serious time researching their specific situation, their benefit type, their healthcare needs, the visa path, and the physical accessibility of the specific city and neighborhood they were considering. Some things are genuinely harder abroad: foreign bureaucracy, language barriers, distance from family. None of that should be romanticized, but it should be on the table. Here is what you take from this episode. When you fly, know the ACAA. Request assistance directly with the airline by phone. Document your equipment with photos and video before every flight. If something goes wrong at the airport, ask for the complaint resolution official. That is the person with real authority. File complaints in writing within 45 days. If the airline doesn't resolve it, escalate to the Department of Transportation. This has been Disability.co. I'm Drew. We'll see you next time.